Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. All right, so today's guest is going to be a fun one because our guest is a really captivating story.
Mm.
He's an entrepreneur, he's a motivational speaker, he's an environmental enthusiast, and had his share of some really tough challenges. Then went from being broke to amassing an impressive $20 million more in earnings, with over $2 million of it generated monthly. He's the current CEO of a company called Energy Advantage Roofing and Solar. He's served over 1,000 customers. He's recruited, hired, and trained over 1,000 different sales reps. And he's continued to help a number of different businesses all across the board. He's got quite a roller coaster journey, though, but he's inspired quite a bit, and he's got the track record to support it. So, look, I can keep going, but let's just jump right into it. Jeremiah Broz, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you for having me.
Man, you've gone through that roller coaster, the ups, the downs. Let's hope that the highs continue to go higher and higher. I remember way back when I heard an interview with Richard Branson, and somebody said to Richard Branson, you had a long history of failure, but now do you even fail anymore? And he looked at this person like they had two heads, and he said, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, "The only difference between now and then is that I fail more often and more publicly." And I thought it was interesting because while there's a lot of ups and downs in almost every successful entrepreneur's careers, the most successful don't look at failure as something that will set them back. I watched a show recently, the Gran Turismo, and the actor in the show, after the big crash, he said to the driver, "Don't let the crash define you. Let how you respond to the crash define you." And when we think about the different failures and the struggles and so forth, this most successful entrepreneurs don't let the failures define them. It's how they respond, and they respond with resilience. So let's talk about that. How did you respond in such a way that allowed you to then create this 20 plus $1 million bounce back with over $2 million a month in revenue?
No, that's a great lead in. So I think like when you experience failure for the first time, whatever you connote as failure, there's a lot to lose because you've never really gone through it before. And a lot of people expect things out of you. And especially if you have a family and you have children and you have kind of these responsibilities put on your shoulder, there's a lot of weight, right, that goes into it and not succeeding. But then over time, as you go through some of the repeated things and, maybe a couple failed businesses or a couple failed relationships or, whatever it may be, but you've lived through it before, you know what to expect.
Yeah.
And it's not that bad. So then it's about that mental aptitude or that toughness. You're like, I've been here before. I remember what got me out of this before, and I can buckle down, put my nose down and do it again. Which for me is usually just get out there and work more, knock some more doors, make some more sales, right? Hire some more reps, get some more things covered. And it's funny, every single time I've doubled down on my own work ethic because I think I was innately probably gifted with a bit of tenacity. Every time I've been able to double down on my own work ethic, I've always came out on the other side, right? And it's just not as bad.
So let me ask you then, the $20 million, right? Would you credit it towards hard work in forging steel, or would you credit it to a specific strategy or whatnot that took you there?
Yeah, absolutely. I first got into roofing in 2014. When you ask most roofing companies like what their value proposition is, I venture to guess most say our customer service. And I'm like, got it, because it's all the same shingles, it's usually the same crews, it's usually the same process, and it's usually the same, ways of collections. But customer service isn't really like your competitive advantage. It's your job. Like you're supposed to do that.
We expect it.
Yeah. Like, that's not really what separates you from everybody else. And if it is, it's a sad day for roofing. So when I started Energy Advantage, I said, and this was in 2017, I just dissolved with another partner in the previous roofing company. And that was the last time I was broke, right? Couldn't figure out rent, 30 days. I had my 2 kids. It's funny, moved into an apartment and we were just eating on boxes. No furniture, no nothing. Not until daddy goes and figures out what he's going to do next. But this business, Energy Advantage, was all about taking some of that insurance proceeds, some of that restoration money, right, and segueing into renewable energy. And in the solar business, a lot of people would start off doing dealerships where they just broker paper.
Yep.
They just broker contracts, broker paper. Not us. We figured out how to do all of our own installs from the inside out, right? So now, so we could potentially install for other companies. We have our own electricians. We have our own installers. We have our own processes. We have our own everything. So that way, when we start going forward, there's a lot less people who are playing our space and can do exactly what we do.
Way back in the day, I owned a real estate development company. We built roads and neighborhoods, the whole deal. And anytime we put a bid out for roofers, at the end of the day, every roofer more or less look like the same. They submit a bid. And so you just look all the way down to the bottom line and you see this is what they're willing to charge. And, because all of them were the same, there really was very little differentiating factor other than price. And so more times than not, it's the lowest price vendor that actually won. So, how do you position yourself? Do you believe that you're going to be the lowest price no matter what, and that's your competitive advantage? Or do you believe that people should elect to do business with you, even if you're more expensive than their competitors? And then, how do you position yourself to win the business, even if you're more premium than others?
That's a great question, and that's kind of the age-old battle, right? How do you add more value than just a number? So one thing that we pride ourselves on is a further warranty than any other company, a 25-year warranty, right? And that's labor, parts, materials. And then two, including a renewable energy component such as solar, battery backup, EV charge stations. One, that's the way we're going as a nation and probably a world, converting a lot more to electricity. So to have somebody who's not just a roofer, but also your subject matter expert in that forefront of where you need to be, right? As a building owner is really powerful. Two, there's a lot of federal tax credits, right? There's a lot of federal tax money that's involved in renewable energy. So when you have federal tax credits that are involved in renewable energy, like on the residential side, and I think on the commercial side too, right? You get these government tax credits, 30% back for installing solar. So now the ticket could be that roofing component plus reducing your energy liability to almost zero, and the government picking up a third of the tab, and it doesn't cost you any more money, doesn't cost me any more profit. And it's just a contractor who's figured out how to add. If it was me and 5 other roofing companies and we all had relatively the same roofing number, but I'm the only one who's actually cutting your electricity cost down to zero as well and adding that asset to the build where you actually make money on that as well, right? That's the value add.
A few things automatically came up during that discussion. He offered a greater warranty than other people in that space. And that greater warranty, if you look at Zappos doesn't compete on price because they don't have to. They give people 1 year guarantee. They can ship shoes back, and Zappos pays for shipping and so forth. So that extra layer of protection, consumer protection, people are willing to pay for. And so that's one way to create that competitive advantage where people are willing to pay more of a premium to know that they're going to be taken care of. The other thing as well is people will choose to give preference over to another person that takes the time to truly understand what's most important to them, to ask the right questions. And, our general rule of thumb is don't do it. Don't just submit an RFP. Don't just submit a quote unless you have the opportunity to speak with somebody directly, understand what's really motivating their decision. And then before you would send an RFP or a quote, what we typically recommend to our clients is then to ask the question, okay, I understand you're getting some other bids, but I got to ask, if it was up to you, would you move forward with this deal? And if they don't say yes, what they're going to do is they're going to respond with an objection. So take the time, answer the objection, figure out what's going on. That's one of the ways to overcome situations when people are accustomed to just looking and make decisions over price. Any other tips or bits of wisdom that you want to share as well, Jeremiah?
Yeah. I always think about the, price versus cost, right? A low price can end up costing you more. For example, not to get too technical in the details, but in solar installs, the brain of the whole system is called an inverter, right? And you have your string inverter and you have your micro inverters and then you have your string inverter with optimizers. Well, when we do a string inverter with optimizers, right, it's pretty much the same as microinverters, but if one panel gets shaded, then the other panels will pick up production and it won't really drive down any of the power production
Mhm.
of that array. But if it's a string inverter without optimizers, right, the rest of the panels in that string go down, right? Well, the cost difference to the consumer is pretty significant, not having optimizers or microinverters, just having a string inverter. Or the product itself, actually, let's say it has power degradation where it starts to lose power over 25 years down to 80% or sub 80%. Well, our panels never drop below 92%. That's why we can honor a 25-year warranty on all of our parts, products, labor, everything, because we want to ensure that that power produces for 25 years. So although
Sure.
my price might be a little bit more, it's not going to cost you more over
Sure.
a 25-year run or the duration, whereas inferior product, process, or people may.
That's a good point. Especially when you're submitting a proposal, and maybe just, products, services, the type of talent that you hire, whatever that might be. Now, let me
Yeah.
ask you another question. You said that you've served and trained over 1,000 sales reps. Many
Mhm.
of the people listening right now, they're on founder led sales. How did you go from founder led sales to being able to train, recruit, and have a team of successful salespeople?
That's a great question. So when I started at 19, it was a company called College Pro Painters.
Oh, yeah, I remember them.
Yeah, they've been around since 1972. And I started as a franchisee with them. And I remember my first experience was going door to door by myself, selling paint jobs, not knowing anything about paint. And I would follow their system. So first and foremost, having a sales process and system was key, especially for the inexperienced. And then I had the skill side. I, I had a system, and then I would go out and physically do it and gain some of that experience side. And then when I gained the skill and experience after a number of reps and hours, then I start to become a master of my craft. Then becoming a master of the craft, then we can start coaching and teaching other people, right? So for founders who are out there selling on their own and they want to get out of, just daily selling and more in operations, one, preserve some cash, make sure you got some cash ready for ramp up because people won't sell to the caliber that you're selling. Two, think about that skill side, that education, right? That systems piece. How do you have resources available to really win if you're doing in-home sales, to win at the in-home sales at the table? And then get out there and get the reps and coach people on their skill and giving them more experience. And then from there, I always believe in a trifecta of managing. We used to call them what we call them GPSs, goals and problem solving. So that's Monday meetings
Yep.
on being able to figure out people's effort, what they're
Yep.
doing, right? Get out in the field with them 1 day, 2 days, but coach them with live people, give them written feedback. And then three, I always have semi-annual or annual performance reviews,
Smart.
right? In developing people. I think when you stick to those, that just trifecta of management, you're going to see people progressing a lot further. And then as people progressing and they're doing well in their jobs, A, they're going to be making more money. But then B, they're probably going to have some of that energy to start replicating and doing what you've done with them.
I think one of the biggest problems that founders often have, and the reason that gets them stuck in founder led sales, is the way that they go about bringing on their first salesperson. They say, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to go on LinkedIn. I'm going to collect a whole bunch of resume, put a job posting out there. Then, ooh, this person has X amount of years of experience in my industry. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hire them. And they go, okay, here's a little bit more about our product. Here's a little bit more about our business. And they pat them on the back and they're like, go get them, Tiger. And they give them a quota. But every business is a little different, even those in your industry, number one, because there are differentiating factors and slight distinctions in target market. But also more importantly, for the founder, many times it took them years to figure out how to answer the objections or how to sell their own products and services. And now they're expecting somebody off the street with, 1 week of training to be like, okay, now go get them, Tiger, and close it. And more times than
Right.
not, that's where they fail right in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Then you said systems and processes. So
Mhm.
for the founders listening, what has to go into the systems and processes in order to make it effective in scaling themselves out of sales?
Having a sales model, having a process that when you're with somebody in the home, I would say two, what is like a week long calendar, a 30-day calendar, and a 6-month calendar for ramp up? If it's a sales individual, and let's say they're in charge of their own door-to-door B2B cold calling lead generation, right? Then there's portion of time allocated to lead generation, portion of time allocated to setting, portion of time
Yep.
allocated to selling, and a portion allocated to closing. And then digging into time management. If you have your own marketing department and your own setting department, right? Then that's different. But I think time management and being properly allocated to where they need to spend their energy and resources. So that's maybe the objective piece of it, right?
Yeah.
Is planning out all of the time and the details of the logistics they need to do. Then the qualitative or the subjective piece of it would be we used to call it situational leadership at College Pro. But if somebody's really new, you give them a lot of direction, checklist, check in with them 3 times a day, half day goals. And then as they start to get more experience, then they're going to kind of slide down that transition curve and they're not going to be super motivated. So now you got to really focus on coaching,
Hmm.
which is shoulder to shoulder, being in the field, demonstrating with live customers, getting them through that hump of, because for a lot of people, and I faced the same thing when I wasn't having success in the beginning of my career. But for a good leader, I think standing shoulder to shoulder with him in the forefront, knocking doors till 8 at night, closing the sale with that customer, figuring out the objections at the table. That's what a coach does. And then as they start getting a hang of it, you support them
Yeah.
with the right materials. And then eventually when they become a star in your metrics, right, you can delegate those tasks to them.
How important do you feel that having the right sales management is to building a winning sales team?
Depends on the caliber of the people you hire.
There
If
you go.
if they're not grade A talent, you need a lot of management.
Yeah.
Because they just won't be accountable to certain stuff or they're waiting for the time to pass. But if you have a really good value proposition and you have a team of, excellent caliber people when I say caliber, I just want to reiterate, I'm not talking about experience, right? But I'm talking about kind of that inner bar of excellence, the accountability to update your prep when you're back home at night, showing up on time for meetings, going the extra mile when the team needs you, kind of that stuff, right?
Sure.
So when you have the right caliber of people, they'll often manage themselves, and then we can kind of put them together in pods and gamify it, right? And let their egos get the best of them, but giving them that clear structure.
It's interesting because even though, I'm the CEO of the company, I manage a pipeline, but it's a much smaller pipeline. Because being a coach, I feel that in order for me to continue to be able to develop the IP and support people, I have to be able to sit in the seat at the same time. So just as a keeping fresh. But even though I know better, I still perform much better when I'm managed. Even the CEO having that active management, so even all people, it's just knowing we've got so many different things and so many things that are pulling our attention. All management has to do is not necessarily be that micromanager and tell them what to do. Management can be something as simple as just setting those rails to help people keep their attention focused on the most important things that actually need to get done. It's a positive thing. CEOs often struggle because they don't have anybody to hold themselves accountable. They set a KPI and they miss it, and it's like slap on the wrist. But it's those CEOs that will then bring in a level of accountability, however that might look in their structure and their business. That the moment they start bringing on that other level of accountability, they tend to perform even at a higher level. Have you found yourself? Does that story sound familiar to you? What do you do
Oh,
to hold yourself accountable?
yeah, that's exactly right. But 2.5 years ago now, I brought in a partner. He's our COO. He's now our chief visionary officer, Takuya. And he is phenomenal at systems. He is phenomenal at systems. And by him coming in and coordinating, all of our operations, helping with our flow chart, our accountability chart of all of our people, systems and processes, we were able to tackle, right, some major issues like scheduling, like lead flow, stuff like that, and then build on those processes. What I realized was bringing in a partner, I'm a lot more accountable now, right? And I've done way more in sales because I don't want to let my partner down. And now there's more than just me at the helm, right? So what I realized is being a good leader is also being a servant, right? A subservient partner. And it's not about me, and it's not about how much I'm working or not working. It's about not letting other people who are counting on me down, right? I felt that when I was starting, this company. It was just me and my girls were real young at the time. I was recently divorced, and they would come with me in the ring. I didn't get any babysitters. I didn't get any teachers. They were in school summer. They learned how to pitch roofing at the doors, and they learned what ring shank nails were, and drip edge. And they came and they hung out, but it was just me and them. But I was accountable at the time. I was accountable to them and succeeding and surviving because they also relied on me. Well, bringing in a partner, bringing in other people that you trust, and giving away some of that ownership and that responsibility, that burden, and grow something bigger and better and beyond you, for me, helped me be a lot more accountable. A lot of CEO founders, they're playing a lot more positions. So what happens is they never really get to be in their genius, right? Their lane of significance, right? My lane of significance is really probably sales and leading people. Everything with operations and follow-up and micromanagement, as just it was pulling teeth for me, right? So by bringing in a partner, he allowed me to get out there and go sell. Even though I'm the CEO and sales manager, I'm still our number one sales guy, right? In solar and solar roofing sales crossing 4 million on residential. I'm doing a lot of tickets. So I'm able to lead by example, just showing my team what a $4 or $5 million sales rep looks like, right? In residential sales. But I wasn't able to do that if I didn't have this partner and running this whole other side of the business.
That's brilliant. And you're right about entrepreneurs oftentimes wearing multiple different hats and feeling that they're good enough to be the lineman and whatnot. But now, Jeremiah, I know we're pushing up against the clock. Where this is the Beyond Seven Figures podcast, what would you say is your best tip for the CEOs and founders that are listening, wondering how to take their business beyond seven figures?
If the transaction price is lower, I should say the gross profit margin is lower, right? You got to scale wider, and scaling wider is through people. So you got to learn how to really manage, dig in deep with systems, kind of everything we were talking about. I think in managing people, there's a couple things that I would just recommend. Define your core values and define your value proposition to the marketplace. If you have really sound core values, our core values is grace, gratitude, resilience, accountability, connection, empowerment, right? I've talked about our value proposition of solar roofing combined, right? One of the only people who are in the industry doing it from the ground up. Well, when we have these combined core values and this value proposition that can't be matched in the marketplace, people come knocking on our door. They want to figure out some of that sauce, and then we'll figure out, down the road, franchising, equity splits, licensing, you name it, where they get an opportunity to be in the forefront. So I think having a tribe with you is how you get beyond seven figures.
Got it. Smart. Now, people want to learn more about you and the work that you do and so forth. Where do we send them?
Come check out Energy Advantage Roofing and Solar down in Denver, Colorado. You can check out our Instagram, Facebook, website, LinkedIn, and all that stuff. EnergyAdvantage.com.
Got it. YourEnergyAdvantage.com. Well, we covered a lot today. We talked about breaking out of founder-led sales, the importance of management, talked about systems and processes, and bouncing back from failure, and resilience and accountability, and a whole bunch of just overall goodness. And Jeremiah, this is just great, and it serves as a good reminder that just because we might have a hardship once or twice or several times for that matter, that with enough focus, keeping your eye on the prize, and hard work in your case, right, really rolling up your sleeves and facing fear head on, that anything is really possible. And even in a highly, highly commoditized, very difficult space as roofing and solar, both very, very difficult industries. And you've paved your way into creating and capturing your own slice of the pie. So well done, my friend. Well done.
Thank you.
All right, so
Thank
this wraps up today's episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. For more tips, strategies, and information for taking your business beyond seven figures, also check us out at predictableprofits.com. Again, that's predictableprofits.com. This is Charles Godet with my friend Jeremiah Broz, and I will see you in another episode.